Hey guys, welcome back to DevDrawer. Today we are going to be going over how to build our own custom plugin, and this is going to be the first video in a series of videos for us. Before I get started, if you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, do subscribe because this video series, this is going to be the first one in a couple of them. I would say there's probably going to be 4 or 5, 6 of them of this one type of series where I'm going into more and more in-depth details of how to create certain functionality for plugins, like how to create a settings page, how to create a custom post type, how to create something whenever someone uninstalls something, and eventually maybe even get into how you would add your plugin to something like Envato or a purchase website so that you can start selling and making money off your plugin. I have sold and built hundreds of plugins. I've made a lot of money off of plugin sales, so this is something that I know a lot about, and if you do it right, then it's something that could be a pretty good residual income for yourself. So let's go ahead and get started with it. One of the first things we are going to do is we're going to open up our terminal, and we're going to SSH into our local server, which you should already have set up, whether you're using WAMP or you're using your own local server, or if you're using a publicly hosted website. Basically what we're doing is we're going to go into the plugin folder for our WordPress website that we've already created. And as you can see over here in our browser, this is the WordPress website. Let me go ahead and log into it. So let's go to WP admin, DevDrawer, and then my password. And then if we switch over to the plugins, you can see there's currently no plugins available. So inside of our WordPress website, I'm just going to create another folder inside of our plugins. So I'm going to cd into WP content/plugins, and then inside of this I'm just going to do a sudo make directory, and let's just call it DevDrawer. So this is going to be our plugin folder. Okay. Alright, now I'm going to open that folder inside of this. So I'm going to go to, let me see, I'm going to go to open file, open folder, and then I need to open up the server, and I'm just going to bring that folder itself into this. So right now it's a completely empty blank folder. Now that we're in this folder, there is only a few files that you need in order to create a plugin. The most important one is going to be a file that's named after the plugin itself. So since we named this folder DevDrawer, we're going to call this file DevDrawer as well, .php. And inside of this file, this is going to be what kind of initializes our entire plugin. And if you remember over here, we don't currently have any plugins available, and even if we refresh the screen right now, there's nothing that's available, even though we have a plugin folder now, just because we don't have any information about it. So in order to initialize a plugin, only thing you really need to do is just type in the following code in order to kind of tell WordPress that this is a plugin. So we're going to add a comment called, and we're going to use it to give the plugin a name. And we're just going to call this one DevDrawer, let's see, sample plugin. And then we're going to give it a plugin URI, and I'm just going to link out to the DevDrawer website. Let's see, devdrawer.com. And this is just giving it information to display inside of that plugin window. So now let's do the description. So let's just say this is a sample plugin developed by DevDrawer for YouTube. Okay. Let's see. Let's go ahead and give it a version of 1.0.0, and then the author. So this is all required information. So you got your plugin name, plugin URI, description, version, author, and then author URI. All of that is required in order for it to display properly inside of the WordPress plugins. And then finally, author URI, and we're just going to do this same URL, and that's actually HTTPS. And then let's just close out this comment, and save it. So now whenever we go to come over here and we refresh the screen, you can see now we have a plugin. And if we hit activate, it'll work, because that's all that you really need to start the plugin. So you could add all of your functionality here, or you can do it the way that I'm going to show you in a second, where we actually kind of get it all set up using object-oriented programming rather than having everything in one file. But this is essentially all that you would need in order to get this thing set up. So I'm going to go ahead and deactivate it again. And then inside of this, there's a few things that I like to define. One of them being that it looks for the ABS path. If this file is being accessed directly, I want it to die. So we're going to do if, hold on, where's my mouse? Okay, so if defined, and we're going to pass the ABS path, and if it is defined, we're just going, or if it's not defined, we're just going to die, and then end if. So that way, if anybody tries to access this file directly, it just kills the code. So you can kind of help prevent some hacking attempts by doing this. And having said that, inside of this folder, we also want to create an index file, just because we don't want it to be browsable. So we're going to create an index.php, and then we're just going to put in some blank messaging in it. I think the normal one that WordPress does is something like PHP silence is golden, and then that's it. So that'll prevent them from being able to browse this directory directly, and then being able to access this file directly. Okay, so now this is kind of where we need to get started, but there is also some other folders that you need whenever you're creating an object-oriented plugin. So we have the main file. We're also going to create a new folder, and we're going to create a folder for our CSS. Even though we're not going to add any CSS right now, we're also going to create one for our JavaScript, which we're not going to add right now. We'll do it in a future video. And then we're also going to create a new folder called includes. The includes is where we're going to have all of our PHP code. We're not going to write everything in here. We're just going to reference it in here. So inside of this includes folder, I want to go ahead and create some classes. And the classes are going to just be some predefined classes created by us for this specific plugin. You can create whatever kind of class structure that you want, but this is going to be like this simplistic plugin class structure. So let's do class dash dev drawer, and we're going to use dev drawer a lot in this, because the more you make your naming scheme more unique, the less interference it can get from other plugins, or can be caused by other plugins. Okay, so let's do a new file. So that's going to be our initialization. So we're going to have a function for an activate and deactivate. So we want to have that in our initialization file. And then we're going to have our generic class. So dev drawer.php. So these two files are going to be used inside of our plugin. So like I said, this one's going to be whenever you turn on the plugin and turn off the plugin, it's going to run some functions from here. So let's go ahead and inside of this, let's just create some functionality. Not even some functionality, we're just going to write the class out for it. So let's do dev drawer initialize, and you can call this class whatever you want to call it. This is just what I'm calling it, so that we can be able to reference it on the other file pretty easily. Let's create a public static function, and we're going to call this one activate. And right now we're just going to leave it blank, and I'm going to create another one just like it, and we're going to call it deactivate. So whenever we're activating a plugin, right now we're not going to do it, but you might want to have it where maybe it comes in here and resets your permalinks. So whenever you go to add new custom post types, or something like that, they don't have to go in there and manually reset the permalinks. You just create the function that goes in there and resets the permalink whenever the plugin is activated. Whenever you deactivate a plugin, maybe you want to remove data, or you want to clear out anything else that's been used in the plugin, reset purchase code or authentication information, stuff like that. So I'll just go ahead and leave it as remove data, just so that we can see that and we're not going to do anything with it right now. We're just going to have these functions available through the initial class that we create here. All right. So we need to include the initialization file before we can use the class that we created. So we're going to do a require once, and then we're going to use the following WordPress function called plugin directory path, and this is going to give us the directory path of our plugin itself based on the file location that we're currently in. And then we're just going to reference the includes folder, which is over here, and then we're going to reference the file name. So class-dev drawer-init.php, and then that should be it for that one. Let me minimize this a little bit so it's not wrapping so much for you guys. There we go. Okay, so let's go ahead and create the function that is going to, it's going to be hit whenever the plugin is activated or deactivated. So the first function is going to be, let's just call it dev drawer activate. We're not going to pass anything to it. We're just going to call that class that we've created up here. So we called this one dev drawer init for initialize. So we're just going to do this, and then we're going to use that activate function that we created over here. So right now it's not going to do anything because it's not actually doing anything, but if we, we can test it in just a second. I can show you that it actually does do something, but right now it's not doing any actual kind of functionality. And then I want to make a copy of this, and we're going to turn this to deactivate. So deactivate, deactivate. Now we have the two functions that we need in order to activate or deactivate the plugin. Now we just need to use the registration hooks whenever the plugin is activated or deactivated. So let's do the first one for the activation. So we're going to do register activation hook. And then again, we're going to pass the file that we're currently in, and then we're just going to pass that function how we called it above, so dev drawer and underscore activate. So that's going to be the first. Whenever the plugin is activated, it's going to run that hook, which is going to call the function, which is in turn going to call the class and then run the function. So it's kind of convoluted, but if you order it this way, you'll be able to control it a lot more based on specific functionality rather than having to put everything in one page or a link to it or something like that. It'll make it a lot easier for you to be able to organize your code if you start building onto this. Okay, so I'm going to copy this and we're going to paste it down, and now we're going to change this to a deactivation hook, and then we're going to run the deactivate code. So now that we have our activate and deactivate functionality, like I said, it doesn't do anything right now, but we can add some registration or deactivation hooks, activation or deactivation hooks whenever we get to that point. But right now I'm just trying to show you how to kind of get started with it, I guess. And you can build on what I'm saying right now. It's it's not too difficult once you start understanding how the class structure works and what you can actually call, what kind of hooks you can call and stuff like that. Okay, so let's go ahead and create something down here that's actually going to run after it gets activated. We're going to create a function. Let's just call it initialize, and then what we're going to do is we want to check to see if a class exists. So we're going to do if class exists, and then we're going to call the class devDrawer because that's going to be our main class that we're going to do inside of the other class file. And then once we get inside of that, we're going to do, we're just going to initialize it. So let's just create a variable called devDrawer. And then it's just going to be new devDrawer, which is going to be the class. Okay, so let me go ahead and close out my if statement. And then inside of this class devDrawer, this is where we're going to add some of the other functionality of the code. So let's do PHP, and down here let's do class devDrawer because that's what we just called it in the function call or the class call. And then let's add a variable for the version so we don't have to always create a new the numbers. We can make it dynamic where we go to pass the version if we want to display it publicly. Let's go ahead and create a protected variable for that. So protected, and then we're just going to call it version. Protected version. And inside of this, let's create a public function, and then this is going to be our construct. If you're familiar with object-oriented programming, you'll know what this is. Basically, this just helps us construct our class in the way that we can set variables, reset variables, stuff like this, all in one function as soon as this class gets called. So let's do if defined, and let's just create a variable called dev drawer version, and let's just make this a capital V as well. So if the dev drawer version is defined, we're going to pass the version number to this version variable, and we're just going to make this equal dev drawer underscore version. Let's see, else we're just going to set it with a default version. Let's say equals 1.0.0. And this is primarily used for us, and I'll show you how we're going to create a function that's going to be able to do it. Let me go ahead and close this out. But let's go back to our devdrawer.php, and right after we define this, this die command, let's go ahead and define a dev drawer version, and let's just leave it at 1.0.0. So that way that if we change it here, it'll be able to pass it in this file, and then we can create a function that will pass it wherever we need to. If we don't declare it for whatever reason, if we did not have this, it would just put it at 1.0.0. So this is just something that I include on my plugins. You don't have to do this. It just makes it easier for me to be able to pass along the version number to the front end code or the back end code to be able to display it if someone needs it. Okay, so going back over here, let's go ahead and create a function to get the version. So we do public function get version, and then we're just going to return this version. So that's a pretty simple function just to grab this information. Okay, so let's also come up here and actually let me add some commenting to this so that we can make sure that we're keeping everything structured. So let's say this is going to be the class construction, and then down here we're just going to call this one and say it's get current version number, and then up here I want to create another function that's going to be set up to run whenever the plugin is installed and active. So let's just say what do I want to call this? Let's just say we're gonna call the function run, and we're just gonna say that it function to run setup and install code. Okay, so then we're just gonna call this function. So we're gonna do a public function. We're just going to call it run, and then inside of this we need to check to see if you're an administrator. And the reason why we're doing that is because there's going to be some parts of the plugin that is going to be admin only, and then some parts of it that are going to be public. So right now we don't have an admin folder or anything that's going to go inside of that admin, but it is good to check to see if you're inside of the administration if you are an administrator. And the way you do that is using isAdmin, which is a WordPress function, and then this is where you would run code for only admins. And let's go ahead and close this statement out. Okay, so I think that's that. Okay, so now we got this where whenever the plugin is initialized, it's activated, all of this is done. It's going to come down here, and then we want it to hit that run. So we're going to do dev drawer, and then we're just going to run that function. So this is essentially all that you would need in order to create a plugin to kind of get started, kind of like I guess a framework for it. One more thing, we need to add the initialize function, so when it gets done with everything, it runs this initialize function. So this may sound a little bit convoluted how I currently have it, but essentially it's not going to require you to put all of the code in one place. Whenever we get to this part over here, we can include a file or require a file for our custom post types that we're going to create in the next video. We could also come in here and create the settings page for the plugin, stuff like this. So right now, I think that's pretty much it for this tutorial. I mean, we have a plugin that's activated correctly. It currently doesn't do anything, but if you wanted to add in some code on this side, you could get it to display a settings page, which we'll go into in another tutorial. I'm trying to think if there's anything else I can show you on this part that would kind of help you guys figure out what this would be for. How about we create a simple custom post type? I think we could do that. Alright, so let's come over here, and inside of this is admin. Actually, you know what? Over here, let's create our admin folder. So we're going to do a new folder, we're going to do admin, and then inside of this folder, I want to create a file called CPTs. So new file, we're going to do cpts.php, and then inside of this CPTs, we're going to create a function to create a custom post type. I'm not going to go through the whole creation of the custom post type just because I'll do that in the next video, but I will kind of show you how to get started with it. So since I like working with employee databases, we're going to create a custom post type called employees. So I'm going to create a function, and we're going to call this one create employees, and that is that. Okay, so let's go back to our class, and inside of this is admin. We need to include this CPT file. So I'm going to grab the same code that I used on our dev drawer, the regular the plugin landing page for it. I'm going to include that here, and instead of being includes, we're going to link out to the new admin folder that we just created, and then the new file called CPTs, which would be here admin and then CPTs. And then I think let's go ahead and inside of the CPTs we can just create a, let's say, a very simplistic, let's just register a post type. So register post type, and then I'm going to call it employees, and I don't think that's going to work all by itself because it needs arguments, and the arguments is what's going to be the time consuming part of this. Let me see if I can pass a few arguments that we can use for it. Okay, so let's see, we're going to create an args array, and then inside of this array, let's say we're going to do a label, and we're just going to call it employee, and then let's do a supports. So I'm trying to think of all of this stuff off the top of my head because I wasn't planning on getting to this part of it yet. In support, you got to pass an array, so we're going to pass a title because we want to be able to add a title, an editor, and then let's also pass the thumbnail so that they can add that. Let's see what else. Let's make it public, and let's set this to true. Let's do the menu underscore position, and we're going to set this to 5, which should make it appear right below the post in the WordPress administration. Let's do a menu icon, and this is going to be the dash icons from WordPress, and I'll show you how to do this in more depth in the next tutorial, but right now I'm just trying to show something. Hopefully I'll be able to show you what, that actually the plugin is working, because right now there's nothing you can see to see whether it's working. Dash icon admin users, I know that's one. And then let's do a capability type, and let's make it the same as a post, and I guess we can try to see if that works. It does not, so we're missing something. Let's see, deactivate, activate. Wait, did we run this function? We did not. Okay, so that might be the reason why that's not working. Let's go back to, this is our class file. Over here, we're going to do add underscore action, and on initialization of the plugin itself, we're going to do the function create employees, as I believe what we called it. And let me just make sure. So create employees. Now let's come back over here and refresh the screen. Still nothing. I'm trying to see. So let's do. Now there's a lot of stuff that we can add to it. So employee supports taxonomies. Let's see, public. I know there's a show UI. I don't think that's going to matter for this one, but I'm just going to add it anyway. And then let's show in menu. That might actually be the one that's causing it true. Now let's come back over here and refresh. Still nothing. Well, I know this is all you need to be able to show something over here. So let's look through the code that we have over here. So we have our initialize that calls our class dev drawer. We're not even calling the file that calls that. Okay, so one of the big issues we're having is we're not calling this file itself. So let's get rid of the initialize over here. So before this initialize class and this class right here and all this stuff can run, we need to actually link out to the class that we created for it. So let's save that and refresh it now. Okay, let's go over here, and inside of the okay, I see. We need to have this directory name. So dir name. Let's wrap this file inside of that and save. Refresh. Okay, there we go. This is what I was looking for. So now we have our custom post that we created. We can add a new one, and it has a featured image, title, all this kind of stuff. So you can see now that if we have our plugin, we deactivate it, the employees goes away. If we activate it again, employee comes back. So it was just a simple thing where I forgot to include the file that we were looking for the class. So this run function was never even getting hit. Okay, well, I think that's going to do it for this tutorial. In the next tutorial, I'm going to probably finish creating this custom post type. I'll leave this open right here while I'm talking just so you can kind of see it. But this is what we're going to be working on next week. We're just going to kind of build out the remaining functionality and actually put in the labels correctly so it has right now it says employee, but it should say employees, and up here it should say employees. And when you go to add a new one, it should say employee. So there's different ways to do that, but that's going to be in the next tutorial video. But for right now, I think that this is going to be it. Hopefully this kind of gave you some interest in how to create your own plugin for WordPress. It's a start. I know it's not a lot, but it is a start, and we'll go into this over the next few videos. I think I'm going to create a whole series out of creating a custom plugin. I've actually built a few plugins myself, and I sell them on Envato, and they sell very well. I have one international best-selling plugin that I'm very happy about. I'm not going to mention it here just because I'm not trying to cross-sell, but yeah, so I know how to build plugins that people want to use, and I've made some money off of it. I've probably made $60,000 or $70,000 just off of that plugin itself. So if you want to build out plugins, it's a great revenue stream if you can get your plugin listed on some place like Envato or something like that, or you can sell it yourself. But I think for this video, this is going to be it. Thanks for watching, and I hope that you learned something. Talk to you later.